Foundation into frames, take 3. The next order of business is to put frames of foundation into, or sheets of foundation into the frames that we've assembled. In this particular case, this is not a new frame, but it would be the same thing if you had just put one together and assembled it for use with plastic foundation. Basically, you just glue and staple the corners, as I showed in an earlier video, except with plastic foundation, you don't have a wedge top bar or a divided bottom bar. You see, it's just got a groove cut in it, in a groove in the top. We didn't have to add any eyelets. We just assemble the frame. We take a sheet of foundation, plastic foundation. This is not new either, but I'm using it for demonstration. It is, if I could show you, that's supposed to be coated with beeswax, but most of what I find anymore hardly qualifies as a coating. It's more just sprayed on, and it's just very, very, very little wax. It's not a solid coating, just been, droplets spread across. And as a consequence, the bees really, they'll draw it, but they're less attracted to it than if it had a good solid coating of beeswax on it. You can take a sheet like this, or even get a sheet that doesn't have any wax on it, and paint it with your own wax if you want. And that is a good way to do it. It's just very time consuming and labor intensive, and it also uses up your beeswax, which if you have really nice beeswax, you may hate to use it doing that. You might rather make candles and soaps and lotions. You can also buy plastic foundation from outfits that will put extra coating of beeswax on it and will really give it a good coating. You pay a premium to do that, but they will do it. There's an outfit called Acorn, which is pretty popular in a lot of beekeeping circles for getting that extra coating on. Again, as is, the bees will draw this out, even with just the spritzing of wax on it. Anyway, to get this into this frame, this final step in the assembly process, basically what we're going to do is snap it into place. And voila, there it is, ready to go. That is how we do it with plastic foundation. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Away we go, ready to go. If, on the other hand, your intention is to use beeswax foundation, the job's a bit bigger. You've got the frame that we assembled. We put eyelets in the holes that we're going to use. We broke out the wedge, and we have a completely divided bottom bar. You can, I think I said earlier, you can get away with a grooved bottom bar, but my luck hasn't been very good with those, so I'm not going to tell you that that's a good idea. I am going to load this gun. I should have loaded it already. I'm sorry. I'm going to load it with 5/8 inch brads. And 5/8 inch brads are, the idea in a brad that is that short is that we're going to have the wedge. We're going to use this to tack this wedge back into place here in a moment. So it'll go right back where it was to begin with. These will, as you see, between the wedge and that top bar, they don't go far enough up to penetrate through the top of this top bar. And when you're out working the bees, if you used a longer brad for this, that would be a problem. Those things would be poking out, and you would discover that your fingers will find them all the time, and even if you're wearing gloves, they're going to get caught on them. So 5/8 is the length I choose. It doesn't have to carry a huge amount of weight, and so it's kind of an easier way to do it. I have a stack of wax foundation. This is kind of my morning's project this morning. Beeswax foundation, pure beeswax, very fragile. They won't ship this stuff in cold winter because it is very brittle in cold weather. You see embedded in it are vertical wires. These wires on one end are just cut off. On the other end, they have a 90-degree hook, and that hook goes to the top. So in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to slip this piece of wax foundation into that bottom bar, and then we're going to turn the whole thing over. And I hope this is visible, but you can see those hooks are bent 90 degrees up against the top bar. We're going to take this wedge, put it back in on top of those. We're going to take our staple gun, our brad nailer, and we're going to nail this all back into place. I'm trying to do this so I don't block the view of it. Ordinarily I just go pop, pop, pop. You know, it just doesn't take long. I do the two ends and then the middle last. It's a long story, but that's the way I do it. Okay, now you say, well, that's not so bad. Well, you're not done yet. It's not so bad yet. And it really doesn't get bad. It just takes a lot of time. That's really the long and short of it. You can get these. I've tried to use staples to hold the wire in place that I'm about to install in this that goes horizontally. The problem I had with the staples, air-driven staples, was that they either cut the wire and broke it, or they didn't get in tight enough and the wire pulled loose. So, you know, it was kind of it just didn't work so well. So I didn't do it. But the reason, now this is a deep frame. And the reason I'm cross-wiring this is not necessarily to give it extra strength, because these will probably never see or most of these will probably never see the inside of an extractor. So the reason I'm doing these is because, and I don't know how clearly this will be here, maybe this will show a little bit, but you see that this foundation has a bit of a bow in it. And I don't know if you can see that, but if you look on this side, you see those two holes that are drilled, and you can see that foundation has a bow in it. Well, that's a product of the memory in these wires. They came off of spools when they were automatically embedded, and so there is that memory in there that causes it to do. So ultimately, if I didn't crosswire it, what would wind up happening here is this side the bees would probably draw comb out normally on this side. Unfortunately, on this side, right in this area where it bows, the cells would be too shallow because the adjoining frames would be close, and they would be too shallow for them to produce brood in, so they would go unused. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to center this back up so that we have it evenly on both sides, and the bees can draw it out and use it as we would like them to use it. So I'm going to put a nail right here, like so, and I have this wire on a spool, and that's really a pretty neat thing to do. I'm going to insert it. I'm going to come across here. I'm going to come out on this side. I'm going to carry it all the way over here. I'm going to bring it across the back side. And ta-da. It's a little like threading the needle, only when you're doing it with a camera running, it's even more difficult. Okay, so the wire's out. I'm going to wrap it around this nail that's only partially driven into this end bar, like so. And because the spool is mounted, I have a small piece of wood nailed down to my tabletop here. I'll rest the frame against that. I'll use one hand to pull the tension up on it. And I pull it really, 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 really tight. I'll take and I'll bend this 90 degrees at that eyelet and wrap it around that same nail. Like Finished driving that nail in. A couple twists and that comes loose. Now I have a wire that is holding, and as you can see, the bow that was existing in this is certainly much less pronounced. Where it was actually bowed, I think this side was the downside, to where it was bowed down considerably. You see that we are actually just showing each of the holes rather than all of the holes. And on this side, you couldn't see any of the holes, and we're just about right there now. And by the time I embed it, it will be about right. That's at least the hope. We're still not done. We're close. Then we place it on a board. This is like a form board. When I'm going to embed this wire into the wax just a little bit, just to secure it. But when I put the spur embedder on it, if it's not up against some kind of backboard that holds it, you just would push that spur embedder right through that wax foundation, and that wouldn't be good either. So we're going to do this just about like this. And I push it down just enough to get it embedded lightly, just to keep it in place. And I'll do the same on this side. And now I'm done. So there we are. And it's pretty well centered. We'll get good depth on both sides so the bees can produce brood using that entire frame surface. None will go to waste, or certainly not much should go to waste, if any. And we've got a good frame. This, compared to snapping the plastic in place, adding eyelets, breaking out wedges, putting the wax in, wax foundation in, nailing the wedge back, running the cross wires, embedding the cross wires, all in addition, above and beyond what it takes to put the plastic in, is why most beekeepers have gone to plastic, myself included, except for this year. This year's my weird year. This is the way we used to do it all the time. Plastic has become commonplace, and with very good reason, because it is certainly a lot less labor intensive. And I might have been smart, probably would have been smart, to have gotten some of the acorn foundation with multiple coatings of wax and tried that alongside some of the wax foundation to see how it worked. I just know this works. I've done it before. If I put this on in a nectar flow, the bees will go right to it and they'll draw it out quickly, and it is much, 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 much better in my experience than plastic. Plastic, they will draw it out, but they're much slower about doing it. So that's how I do it. There are probably going to be people who will tell us there are better ways to do it, and there may well be. This is just the way I've been doing it for years, and I'm certainly open to ideas that people might offer to make an improvement in my methods. But again, this is how I do it. So hopefully that makes sense.